Like, I don't know, don't you just put TA mid now, and then it's kind of like a fine lane? She's just gonna hyper farm?
Yeah, sure. It really depends, right? It depends on the start, right? Because the TA, if you run it in the safe lane with the Weaver, you can't really leave as the Spirit Breaker to rotate. I'm assuming this is going to be Q playing the Spirit Breaker to be able to rotate towards that mid, because they're just going to kill OD, right, in the meantime. So, I don't know. I feel like Neon do have that extra level of flexibility, I suppose. And I'm just trying to consider what Motivate are going to pick up with this last pick. Most likely it's going to be Boomboy's hero. And what is even left in the pool? The Bane's gone, the Lion's gone. He plays the Snap a little bit, but I don't know how I feel about that against the lineup that they've got right now.
Yeah, if we're thinking this is Paulus' hero at the end, like, we don't know where TA is gonna go. If it does go safe lane, that's fine. But if it's not, Paulus plays a lot of like greedy carries usually. He plays like anti-mages, drow rangers, morphlings. He even played Naga Siren when he was laning against Beastmaster himself. He also, like, I think Gyro maybe is like a good idea against PL. It's kind of awkward because you have to pick a hero that works again in the matchup against OD and lane, but also is able to deal with PL. And you can do stuff like Wraith King even into PL, because you can get like a Radiance build maybe, and you have the Cleave talent 20.
Yep.
And it's not like the worst, even though it kind of sucks for a little while he has Diffusal Blade.
I feel like
I don't want to lane it into OD, man.
You don't want to lane into OD, and I feel like you can't go Wraith King and a TA. I feel like there's not enough farm on the map to be able to do it. I mean, sure, the Beastmaster is going to open up the map a little bit by how much he's able to push, but I still feel like you're going to be way too greedy for that, because, you know, Spirit Breaker, OD, Kunkka, they come online pretty damn early, so they're going to punish you if that's the way that you're going to go down.
Yeah, this TA's probably just gonna go carry, and they're gonna take a mid lane. Like, that's what Motivate.Trust think when they banned out like Ember and Lash. I think those heroes were really good.
I know you said you were a little bit surprised when the PL came out, because obviously the Kunkka seems very good against the Beastmaster.
Yeah.
I mean, part of that as well is also we see one of the bigger counters, I suppose, to the Phantom Lancer is the Weaver, right? Because the Scarab stays on the real one. So you're very easily able to focus him down, and especially with someone like the Beastmaster who's got a great lockdown, as long as you're able to find the right one. It might be a little bit of a concern for Motivate.Trust and Jackie. And they end up going for this Lifestealer here.
Sure, I don't really like Lifesteal that much as a carry right now, but if I...
Give me a Wyvern.
I give you a Wyvern.
It's great deep push against a Beastmaster, and you're against basically entirely physical damage. So Cold Embrace is going to be very value.
I want to see more skirmish on Motivate.Trust lineup. I think like PL is kind of just going to farm it up for a while, and I think like OD, if he struggles to play into like Rubik stealing his Astral, Rubik stealing Astral kind of messes with like Kunkka trying to kill people, it messes with OD trying to kill people, and it messes with Spirit Breaker trying to kill people. So I would like something that's just kind of got like low cooldown spells to like fight a little bit more. Otherwise, I think they're really going to struggle to fight into Neon's lineup.
What else could they look to go? I mean, not really a Grimstroke, right? I mean,
Grim's banned. Yeah, I wanted that too. I was thinking about it.
What are they going to go here? Oh, called it. Let's
Okay.
go. Any heavy physical damage lineup, you want a Wyvern, right? And it's also a nice way to deal with a few of those refraction charges a little bit early on. Arctic Burn, quite good for that. I just feel like it's a great Wyvern game. It's going to provide so much. You do need to be a little bit concerned, of course, with knowing where the Hawk is for Beastmaster.
Yeah.
You just want to be camping behind a tower as much as possible, but if they've got vision of you, Weaver is able to close in, Beastmaster is able to do the damage. But I feel like it was a great way to round out the draft. Maybe laning stage might be a tiny bit more challenging, but at least for the mid game, I feel like it's going to be a really nice pick.
Yeah, I think you're right. I just think they struggle. Like I said, I still feel like with Wyvern they struggle a little bit to fight, but on the whole, like I think what they can do, at least with Wyvern, which is really nice, is hold towers, put them in a lane. They'll be able to give PL space to farm, because it's really hard to just kind of push into a Wyvern with their heroes. And when they group up, which they look like they want to do, then, you know, Wyvern excels.
And even in the laning phase, Splinter Blast plus Spirit Lance, it's an okay way to deal with boars as well.
Yeah, for sure. It's really good in lane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see. And I also want to highlight for our observer, Pythian, is let's have a look at Gacha Boy once we get into game his profile, because he has his sights set on Mamang Daya.
I'm looking forward to it. But also, you are so heavy in on this Wyvern that if it doesn't, you can never be an analyst again, right?
No.
Yeah, great. Danog, he's putting his job on the line for this, all in on the Winter Wyvern win.
He's probably right.
GoDz and John are going to be your casters for game number 1, so please, guys, take it away.
Thank you, Nat, and thank you, panelists. At least thank you, Sheepo. Danog, I'm not sure. John, glad you're here, though. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me around, Parker. We would have had Mike, but, well, that guy has terrible luck. I'm sure he'll tell the story when he's back, but we're together. Mike can sit there and be jealous, and we've got a really great game up with OB.Neon and Motivate.Trust. We were talking about this a bit, and the panel was pointing it out. A lot in the line here, Parker. It could be more tiebreakers if Neon does find that win. Motivate.Trust want to cement their position here in Div 1. So we'll have to see if they've got the goods. We've got a standard C pause. You're going to be stuck with me and GoDz for just a bit more. A little bit of chatting there, Parker, about the profile pics. We were talking about Gotcha Boy's picture. He's got a special one right there. You're seeing it.
Wanted. Mamangdaya. He's got his eyes set on his enemy mid laner. And the old chat's beginning, This is a man who's not afraid to share his thoughts and, add a bit of spice into some of these series. So, what do you make of this when you see? Is this like a good sign, you think, when Fearless is kind of like having some banter, calling out his enemy teams? Like, do you feel like he plays better doing that?
I'd say so. I think it's when Motivate.Trust feel, confident, they tend to be a little bit better as a team. If they feel maybe not confident, but like, not worried about the matchup too much, like they've got that. There's not much stress on them. I think that's where they do best, because I feel like when the pressure's on, Motivate.Trust can end up being a different team. So when they're kind of loose like this, when you get Jackie also all chatting, have him draw out some of that Indonesian he has on hand, things kind of look good, at least mentally, for Motivate.Trust, of course, and that has to translate to a good game, and that doesn't mean Neon's going to play any worse. So whether or not Neon can match up to it is the next question there.
Absolutely. Yeah, Neon, for them, it's been kind of this, roller coaster story, at least, especially if you look at, like, not just the DPC league, because during the break of the holiday break that happened after week 3, they went off and played some third-party tournaments and beat a lot of these Division 1 Chinese teams, which at the time was a really impressive feat, winning the entire event. They come back, they beat T1, and then after that, suddenly they're losing to TNC. So it feels like a very much this, this Jekyll and Hyde act when it comes to OB.Neon.
Yeah, it feels like there's a switch that's being flicked on and off. I think we do have to give props to TNC. They played really well there, and I think it's just showing how much the region improved over that break. It's just that there are not many games to really make that improvement shine. So a few factors here and there. We'll see. A bit of a smoke up here on both sides, sneaking up those wards. They do manage to spot the Motivate.Trust ward, because their smoke did pop, Mamangdaya, so they are aware, and they do have the sentries on Bang, so a bit of a better start here for Neon at the least.
Yes, not as sneaky as he would have liked there, Gotcha Boy. So we'll see both teams settle down and figure out how they want to lane this. It doesn't look like there's going to be any big switch-ups, at least not yet. Massa and Jack Boys, the two side lanes from Motivate.Trust, could theoretically consider some kind of a swap, but I imagine they want this PL against the Beastmaster. Do you see these lanes kind of favoring either team strongly, or should it be like a pretty even laning stage?
I'd say the bot lane for Motivate.Trust should be a little bit better, especially once you hit level 3 on Masa. You can just kind of trade back with the Arcane Orb, play with the Astral to hold back the Lifestealer from farming, and kind of run with that. The top lane's going to be a little bit more even. I think, sure, you've got PL versus Beastmaster, but you don't really have a great way of clearing out the Boar summons early on. So Enryu's still going to have a game. He's not going to be focusing on the Axis. He can just play with the Inner Beast build and call. So he's going to have the Hawks and Boars in his hand. Narman can still be annoying there. I don't think that's going to be a very simple lane for a PL. It's not going to be the hardest lane in the world. Should still be manageable, but Enryu's not going to be shut out of the lane as well. So you can still expect good timings in the Beastmaster, Dominator, forwards, hit level 6, get a push going for Neon.
Yeah, and as much as the PL can maybe play the lane early on, once he gets that Dominator, you do have to worry about, can the PL stay in this lane? Is he going to be forced back to the jungle, or even, forced to these other lanes? So It's a lane where it feels like he's going to make the most of this early levels where he's got this Wyvern to kind of secure the lane, and Beastmaster perhaps is not quite as strong.
Yeah, and there's a lot of ways for Henry and Norman to work that lane anyway. We can maybe see some creep pulls if it does go south for some reason. They can always just get the pulls going as well. Norm can drag it over. There is an early block, though, on the large camp. So not going to have access to that early, and Norman doesn't really have a sentry on hand yet. So maybe cutting off some of those stacks that they can work on.
Mid lane, Mamangdaya, fearless gotcha boy. He called him out, and it's a TA. This is not a hero. You don't get solo killed by a level 2 TA. What's going on, Fearless?
Yeah, it's maybe just a bit too much aggression coming out from Fearless. Positioning way too far forward, not respecting Daya, having that early refraction up. Only gets the side blades now at level 3, you know, so maybe he didn't expect having to deal with refraction and meld. Minus armor does melt through Gotcha Boy quite fast. He's only got 4 base armor to play with, so it's easier to follow through, and that sets a really good precedence for Mamangdaya. Like, it's supposed to be maybe a slower lane for TA. You've got refraction to your refraction can just burn through from Torrent, a well-placed Torrent. It's a melee matchup, so you can kind of hold. Although,
Q sets up a kill. Kikuchi was on cooldown, and he just charged in. Nicely done.
Yeah, getting some aggression off from Motivate.Trust. Not the biggest kill for them to trade. I mean, you still lost your mid in exchange overall, but you are keeping Palace's farm in check, at the least making this lane a bit tougher. And it's as mentioned, you know, once the levels are up for Masa, for Q, with a charge, with the imprisonment ready to go, they can make this a lot tougher for Palos. He's already at half HP, he's being shared tangos, doesn't have much regen left on hand. They do have the Salve and Abeng, but you can't really trade hits too much. Like, if you trade hits with Q, he's a tanky Spirit Breaker. You're not going to win out, and you might get bashed in the process. And Masa, he deals a lot of damage, even with just level 1 Arcane Orb. If he can get a hit in, that trade already doesn't work out for you.
It feels like a game where this Lifestealer, you know, the laning stage could become a little bit rough, but even just the game as a whole, like the Wyvern counterpick comes in last. You've got OD Astral to, like, save anybody you go on. PL with illusions causes you problems. Like, it's a tricky game to be a Lifestealer, and I'm curious to see how he deals with it in terms of, you know, itemization and just the way he plays this game.
Yeah, like, I think for Paulus, it's got to be that fast-paced game. You and I were having that talk there, Parker, where the tempo has to be on Neon's side. They've got to be ready to roll out very fast. Just maybe hit this armlet timing on Palos. Get forward, play with your team, play with a Beastmaster, and just push towers from there.
Yep. Definitely something that they're capable of, particularly with how well this mid lane has started for Mamangdaya. 17 last hits, 13 denies. He is absolutely crushing it. And this is before that, like, TA acceleration phase, which happens, you know, like around that 8 to 15 minute mark when you've got side blades farming up stacks, going to your ancients. So there's definitely going to be some concerns about how well this TA's lane is going so far on the Motivate.Trust side.
Yeah, it's going way too well. Like, for a while, Mamangdaya was 5, while Gotcha Boy was 3. Just hits 4. That's still a big level deficit, and I do appreciate what Mamangdaya has done. You know, he's gone for an early Blightstone in lane, so that's adding on to that meld minus armor, just melting through Gotcha Boy every single time he comes up to that Reaper. Just a quarter of his HP gone every single time.
Yep. 1 meld strike. That's just the level 1 meld as well. I mean, this has become the TA build, which is where it's like, I don't think he should have been caught by surprise by the meld early on, because against these melee heroes, like we see it against the Ember as well, you just go for this meld harass and go for the side blades later on. And yeah, this Kunkka already being forced back, doesn't have a small camp to farm on the neutrals, so OB.Neon just doing a good job of setting their mid lane up for success.
Yeah, and they've got really good ward coverage, blocking out the ancient camp and the small camp, getting some forward vision as well to ensure that they know when Gotcha Boy is going in to just farm, freeing up the lane, opening up those opportunities to grab some of those stacks as well. And
just blocking these camps, like the ancients are actually blocked by a sentry, so he tries to stack it on the Kunkka when he, you know, goes into that jungle and, you know, gets nothing out of it.
Just going to slow down that early pace the Kunkka wants to have, and we've seen slower Kunkka games where the armlet's delayed, your Shadow Blade's delayed, Silver Edge is delayed, and it just feels like your entire timing's thrown off. It's also a bit of a tempo hero, so we've got to see if Motivate.Trust can kind of get that room going. I mean, they are sacrificing mid, they haven't been really going mid to help out, Their focus has been on the side lanes, and every single time the supports disappear from Neon, they can kind of lay in. We are seeing Paulus just getting a lot of hits onto him from Masa, from Q. Nothing to really line up for a kill. But the next time around, he sticks his head forward a bit too far. That could line up for Motivate.Trust. So some openings coming through, but definitely at a big cost of just sacrificing Gotcha Boy's game.
Yep. He de-wards his small camp, but now going for a bottom rune check. He may have bitten off more than he can chew. The charge coming in from Q is looking to bail out Gotcha Boy. That bug taking away a lot of his armor, minus 10 armor, and those right clicks are adding up. He doesn't deal with the bug until perhaps too late. One more Shikuchi could finish him off, but it's still 3 seconds they've got to wait, and Gotcha Boy will get back to safety. He doesn't die, but this is just his lane continuing to go poorly. And even this mid-tier 1 tower now being pressured. This TA with a Siege Wagon and that Blightstone doing some good damage here. Behind the tower is the Weaver. He's going to overextend. Pays for that with his life, but I don't think that death matters when you look at how much damage they did this tier 1 tower. It still feels like OB.Neon are getting the better of this mid lane exchange.
They're getting way too much. Like the rotations, it's a lot of supports to toss mid. They drag Narman down as well. But it's not like they're losing out on their top lane. Jackboys is still getting under some slight pressure. He is still farming really well as a PL. Overall in that free lane, going to be hitting that diffusal timing relatively early on. But there's still that timing issue. Even if you have that early diffusal on Peel, you need a little bit more to match up. Like the Life Stealer is going to be a bit tankier. He's still going to have Armlet at some point. Your Beastmaster, which is off to a slightly slower start in terms of CS, is still going to have that Dominator fly out. And that's the timing you and I were mentioning earlier on, Parker, where once the Dominator's up, it doesn't feel like a lane the Peel really wants to hold. They're going to have to find a different spot for Jackie to farm in. And their map just feels, even though their objectives are still up, their map feels smaller because of that early movement from Neon. Just no stacks, no economy built up for any of their cores to kind of flash farm here.
Yeah, and like the damage they do to that mid tier 1, usually it's like Beastmaster has to take the top tower, then rotate mid to help get that tower. Like he's not even needed for most of this tier 1 mid tower. Perhaps if they, make another nice support rotation 10 minutes in with the next Siege Wagon, they can look to take this tier 1 just with the TA being as strong as she is. So but now Mum and Dai are going to rotate back, hit up the jungle. They had, triple, quadruple stacks already going on this medium camp, plus the Ancients with a triple stack. There's all kinds of jungle farm for him to really skyrocket in terms of his net worth as well as the experience that he's getting. So a lot of concerns, I feel like, for Motivate.Trust. We're only 7 minutes in, but this is definitely not the start they imagined. And we'll see how they respond to it. Do you see any kind of obvious moves that they need to make? Like it just doesn't feel like you can contest a TA in the jungle right now with Kunkka being only level 5.
Yeah, you're still a ways off there. Gotcha Boy needs the levels. You kind of want to maybe work your way to level 6 on your supports. I feel like you want to use the Winter's Curse at some point as well to set up. You do at least have this Meteor Hammer timing on Masa, so you can kind of go for the imprisonment into hammer play, get the chain stun off, and try to burst someone down. I don't know if you really have enough damage. I mean, you can try to burn through a TA, but they need to get some forward vision out, and no one's been able to cross that river to plant some nice aggressive wards on Motivate.Trust side. So it's already too late with the stacks being cleared out, and while that's happening, they're still pressuring top with Enryu. There are supports hanging behind Jackie, though. They can't really fully commit for a PL, and he is a bit of a slippery target without the roar, but Enryu's almost got that roar here.
Yeah. Almost has roar, almost has his helm. The helm's coming in the courier. The charge in from Q up top. They don't see this charge coming just yet, so they may not have an idea of it. They do see, I believe they see the Wyvern maybe casting there. That animation seems to be just on the edge of fog. So we'll see if Onryu gets caught out here with the Spirit Breaker move.
It's one of the awkward time. Very awkward time, because Enryu just hits level 6, so he's got Roar. Yep. So we'll see if he makes that split decision to Roar and try. He doesn't really have backup beyond Weaver. Don't think they have enough burst on hand to handle that PL, but the attempt could be made if they think he's solo, and I don't think they actually see him. I think Pitian switched around a vision. Boomboy's right outside, so they might not be aware that there is some backup here.
Okay. We'll see how this one breaks out. As for OB.Neon, not really much potential to TP anyone. They're a bit too far from the tower. It's, it's OB.Neon who, if they want, can bring more. More likely than not, I imagine the OD wants to kind of stay in this bottom lane and start pressuring this bottom tier 1 tower. Rubik, similarly, one of the, strong benefits of having a hero like TA who can go into the jungle so early and farm stacks is you get to give this mid lane to a support. Rubik's going to hit level 6 much sooner than probably some of these dire supports if he continues to get this mid lane solo XP and farm.
And that's going to be big. There's a lot of big spells for Norman to steal. Motivate.Trust aren't really giving that space mid to any of their supports, as obviously they're playing behind Jack Boys here, and Felix is still kind of trying to work his economy back by playing in the jungle. It's, again, just down to the movement. Neon's played a really good game in this early game. They've just managed to force all the movement out from Motivate.Trust. They take control of the jungle early. They're getting that initial farm they need to get this TA to hit its early timings. Like the dragon, the range is going to be increased already soon with the Dragonlance coming in for our TA. So it's not too far off for Mamudaya to really lay in the hurt from afar if you wanted to. And you're still gonna hit that good timing on the armlet here for Palos. He's got the phase boots up. He still has a solo lane against OD, which is hurting him, but it's not much. It's not really slowing him down by much. He's still having a better time than Masa is in the lane. He's slightly behind a PL, which you could argue as the game goes on, the PL can farm a bit faster, jumping through the camps and using the illusions. But we have seen Lifestealers keep up before, so it's not a major concern, I don't think, for Palos. At least in this 20 to 25-minute window, it does feel like that Lifestealer, even if it's slightly behind, is still going to have a little bit more power just from its skill set and its timings at this point than a PL.
Yep. And speaking of some of the things, we've seen, something we haven't seen so much, I would say, in general, in the DPC League, is this PL pick. As far as carries go, it's definitely been one of the rarer options that teams have gone for. What do you make of PL this game as far as, it being a strong pick for Motivate.Trust, or do you have some doubts about how effective it can be?
I think it's pretty good. Like it's just down to the fact that Neon don't have the best ways of clearing out the illusions as the game scales on. Once those illusions are tankier, with say the heart up and running, it can be really tricky for them to melt it down. The side blades can do some damage, but you don't want to be relying on that, because once those illusions are on top of TA, refraction just melts, diffusal comes on, and suddenly TA can't blink out. She's not safe. So you don't have a safe way of clearing out the Jackie illusions down the line. I will say though, every time I see a PL, I keep thinking of the times we were covering NA, and you were there as well, Parker. I remember in that time, Arkosh used to love their PL, and it was always the same build. It was an Octarine Shard build every single time. Now, and every single time it wouldn't win. But Arkosh loved it. Pale Horse loves that. And I was like, I hope we haven't seen that much in C. I don't think Jack Boys is going to go that route. I'm hoping not, but that's also something they can consider, because it does pop out here and there where you go for the Ags, you go for the Ag Shard as well. Go for Octarine is very rare. But if you go ultra late game, that could be like a 6-slot item if things are really desperate and you don't really feel like you can have the damage to just run up and fight someone in a 1v1. So you just spam out your lance from afar as a turtling mechanic. Not something I'd want to see. I think Jackie wants to play a faster game than that.
And that's usually what ends up happening, which is like a bad sign, because it's like this, I'm too weak to fight, so I'm going to sit back and throw lances and turtle and poke at them. So usually the fact you're getting the shard is a bad sign. I think I saw it just a few days ago, actually. There was a PL pick. I want to say it was, I can't remember. One of the teams was playing it. Maybe it was like a Division 2 game or something. But yeah, the PL actually, the shard came out, and it, similarly to in the past, didn't go all too well.
Yeah, it's it's got a purpose. But 1 year on, and I still look back at Arkosh doing that, and I still have a good chuckle about Pale Horse forcing that build every single time. Like, he's winning lane. They've got, Arkosh gets this good start. They get good timings, and I still see him queuing up Octarine Shard. And I'm like, oh, God. It just goes very differently. So I'm hoping, and, thinking back to how Jackie plays, that's not how his PL goes. So it's likely just Diffusal, maybe an SNY, maybe a Manta into the heart, and some damage item to boost down the line. I think that's how Jackie will like to play, and I'm hoping that's what we see. But the issue is, will he find that space, and what will happen in this gank?
Yeah. All right, we're back into it. They've all reconnected, fixed their rouse and whatnot. They're going on Ryu. His helm hasn't arrived just yet. He just throws out the roar to run away. He just hit level 6 from some creep kills there, so they're not going to get the kill.
They block off the gank. Enry does stay alive. He is fairly low in HP though. Is topping up the mana, but they can't get that push going up top now, knowing that Motivate.Trust has brought the resources to bear to stop that. They are getting a lot of space on min. There's no defense for Motivate.Trust. So that siege you were talking about earlier, Parker, it just happens for free.
Yep. TA's like, I might be getting ganked. No, it's safe. I'm just going to come back in and take the tier 1 mid. Q, he's got no charge. They're looking to chase him down, but they decide not to hard commit. Don't want to overextend early on. You take this tier 1 mid tower so early, they've got to feel like they're in a pretty good spot here. Kunkka's just not keeping up. His Ancients are still blocked. He's tried to stack it twice now, and I don't think he might realize now when it's still a single stack. Surely at some point he's like, okay, I'm not messing up the timing, it's just blocked, but they need to decentry it.
Yeah, it's really hurting the economy of Motivate.Trust. Look at the difference with Neon. 3k up with only 1 kill on their board. It's just down to the map. It's just down to those stacks, down to how well Mamangdai has been farming in his lane and in his jungle uncontested. And this is going to hurt Motivate.Trust if they don't manage to find a fix. While they leave the top lane, a push comes out with that Dominator up on Enry. It doesn't take too long for that slow siege to begin on the top tier 1. Fortifies out, but I don't think Motivate.Trust can really fight or just defend. I think they have to surrender those objectives, use the space to farm elsewhere, and just keep trying to hit those initial item spikes they need to get rolling.
Yeah, Wyvern TPing out, not, the best sign of to where this game is at. Usually you want that Wyvern sitting behind a tower, throwing out Splinter Blast, defending a tower, but it's just not feasible when you're playing against the vision that the bugs provide, that the Hulk provides. And that's one of the things where, as good as a pick Wyvern looks against this draft, like against the physical damage, against lifesteal and whatnot, it's such a positioning-based hero, which is really hard to do against like heroes like Beastmaster and Weaver when they can always scout you out.
Finding that good spot for Boomboy to just hold back and, shove out the wave is going to be really difficult. And it's just allowing this bleed off for Motivate.Trust. Like, Neon's just constantly taking the objectives, holding their own objectives really safe, buying space out for the cores. They're grouping up as 3 heroes or 2 heroes at the most, while allowing Mamangdai just uncontested farm, just from their movement on the map, from the info they have. They have really great deep wards here on the side of Neon as well. Forward ward right by the tier 2 to watch when someone's kind of sneaking around for a defense or roaming around, opening up some opportunities. They're watching the top jungle. Motivate.Trust don't have anything aggressive. All they have are really defensive wards, and that still doesn't give them the best control in their own jungle.
Charge coming in. They want to kick this Beastmaster out of their jungle. He roars the charge, but the Astral is there with the Meteor Hammer follow-up. And it looks like they're just going to have to let their Beastmaster go down because Motivate.Trust, they bring 5 heroes. So at that point, if you're OB.Neon, you're like, that's okay. As long as we're farming these other 2 lanes, Lifestealer Palace, go pressure bottom, TA, keep farming mid, jungle, Ancients. That's a big commitment just to kill a Beastmaster.
It's a lot of resources. It really is, and it's that opening for Palace to shove in that will force the TPs in. Jackboys will be the only one to show up to farm that lane, but he can't really afford to go 1v1 versus the Lifestealer. It's good damage coming through from Palace with just the Armlet and the Phase Boots, and it's going to have to be a bit careful. They are going to try to charge through, but again, just finding the backline here. No.
Norman in the trees. He could definitely get off a telekinesis there if needed, but Spirit Breaker not looking to charge in. Perhaps worried, a few heroes missing out from the map. Potential for a TP. Top lane. There's a Meteor Hammer combo as Masa getting gone on now with the Beastmaster showing up. Boar slow on him. He's just dead. No backup in sight. The Astral to buy himself a bit more time, but that just means Beastmaster gonna get that solo kill. And XP. Well, not solo kill, but the XP by himself. Palace down bottom. Meanwhile, nice infest out into Norman. He gets X'd up before the TP can complete, and Lifesteal is going to be popping on out. Has a rage, but won't get a chance to scurry himself out of there. So nice play by Motivate.Trust. They needed that. They get themselves some kill, and a pretty big one on the Lifestealer.
Yeah, it's a good trait to have in the end. The only issue is because your OD died top, your push potential down bot, it's a bit slower. You don't have the Meteor Hammer, you're just going to have to do it the old-fashioned way. They'll take Motivate.Trust, will just commit these 4 heroes to get the objective they need to open up that bot jungle a bit more and to try and get some space going. This is still a lot of time for Neon to farm and everyone else. I think the big issue is still Mamangdai's TA, just no one checking that triangle. Like, it's just so surprising. Motivate.Trust hasn't been able to plant wards, hasn't been able to get supports up to that Radiant jungle. Mamangdai is just flying out the full Desolator now. So the damage output of the TA is through the roof. They're level 13 now. maxed out on the refraction, meld, and side blades. I mean, this is a very hard to kill TA. There's a lot of pressure on Boomboy here to play with a good Cold Embrace, to get a good Winter's Curse off, just to ensure that no one gets instantly bursted by Mamang Daya.
Yeah, and it feels like Mamang Daya can kind of play like, once he gets like, what I imagine would be a Blink Dagger next, is like, he's just going to play very far forward away from his teammates, so that there isn't maybe an opening for a good Winter's Curse. And when he has an Aegis, it's very easy to do that. You can just jump the backlines and go on these supports, force like a Winter Wyvern, like a bad Winter's Curse or a Cold Embrace, and they're going to go for this Roshan. No contest in sight just yet, but here come the rotations. Motivate.Trust just too far away, though. And they've been scouted. Trapped to slow. They want Masa. Mamang Daya leading the charge with that Aegis. Realize suddenly that there's a few too many heroes, and with a Diffusal Blade, PL is ready to go on this TA. Spirit Breaker a little bit too squishy to kind of follow up the charge with any kind of a play here. And the Ghost Ship going to be off the mark with the Astral Imprisonment on Mamang Daya. A bit of discombobulation there coming in from Motivate.Trust.
Yeah, a great stolen Astral save from Narman. Like, that's the one thing. You mentioned at Rubik level 6, there's just so many good spells to steal for Narman, and it makes the game a lot tougher for Motivate.Trust. They have to deal with stolen imprisonment saves. You know, there's no counterplay that you really have here on Motivate. It's just so difficult to find the angles for those curses, for that hold. And feels like Motivate.Trust need a lot more. And we talked about them needing to turtle, but they're 4K behind OB.Neon. It's such a big swing Neon side. They've still got a lot of aggression they can pump out. H is still up for 4 minutes, and every single time you have Beastmaster and TA in the same lane, you've got to respond, because that push with the Desolator, it doesn't take long for the objectives to melt. So Motivate.Trust either have to put the resources in to stop this, or just accept that they're going to lose a lot of map space very early on in this game.
Yeah, losing a tier 2 tower and outposts like 15, 16 minutes in the game sounds really bad for their game here. Abeg's poking his nose behind the tower here. Will Shikuchion out and see Boombell, so they know what's going on, and they know this is just a free tower now. So 15 minutes in, they've taken Roshan, they've taken a tier 2, they've taken enemy, well, they're about to take enemy outpost control. This game's quickly slipping out of control for the Dire team.
It's just a snowball effect that Motivate.Trust has no answer for, because they still need more build up on Masa. Gotcha Boy has nothing to play with. Like, he only has phase boots and one Oblivion staff. He's almost at the Orchid. Even then, that just doesn't feel enough. Like, they need a lot more to get going on all of their cores to really have a position in this game, and there's just not enough map space to get that done. All because they got their Ancients blocked, they didn't deward, they never blocked the enemy Ancients, and Neon are confident enough now to just go smoking around. And they've still got protection of Aegis. They have nothing to lose here.
Yep. They pick up the Blink Dagger on the TA now too, so they've got that initiation tool, plus the upgraded helm of the Overlord now. So with the Ancient Black Dragon, they can push out waves without exposing any heroes to being caught out by something like a Kunkka X. Mid lane, OD's been lifted up by the telekinesis, forces defensively Astral himself. Q goes for the charge on the sidelines. Will catch Arbang's Weaver, but it's Masa going down to another Meld Strike. This defensive Astral just making it impossible for this Kunkka to hit these combos. Mamang Daya just charging forward, looking for these kills, getting blocked by the Cold Embrace, but it's still forcing Motivate.Trust onto the back foot. It looks like OB.Neon are just going to go for another outer tower here, or at least try and force a fight around this mid lane, John.
Yep. And I just don't see any solutions for Motivate.Trust, even with a short respawn on the OD. They just have no kill potential because of Norman standing in the back. So ideally, perhaps you want to take out the Rubik first. Charging Rubik has been tough for Q just because the lift is always there. There's no Shadow Blade up yet on our Spirit Breaker. That's still a long ways off for his support. And even if Neon don't really find big kills, it's just that pressure. It's just forcing Motivate.Trust to bring all of their heroes in for a defense and wasting their time, not finding the opportunity to farm, not finding kills. That's really throwing off the tempo for Motivate. The only good news here is that the farm difference of Jack Boys compared to Mamang Daya isn't actually too bad. You're only 1k behind. Considering that really good start for Mamang Daya, could have been a lot worse. So there's still some breathing room for the PL to build up. You're still maintaining a slight net worth lead over the Lifestealer, but those early item spikes and timings are still a concern, because Neon as a whole still feel a lot stronger as a team with just the few items and levels they have on hand. It's enough to overwhelm Motivate.Trust.
Yeah. as well as Jackie's been doing, yeah, it does feel like a scenario where he can't just run in and carry this game by himself just yet. He's going to need a bit more in terms of itemization. Like the Heart of Trask maybe gives him that kind of survivability to frontline, but even then, he's always going to be asking something from his team in order to make these team fights work, and it's been easier said than done here. Gotcha Boy's gone for this Orchid Rush on the Kunkka, but hasn't really been finding too many openings. Charge on through the mid lane here. They go in on Narman's Rubik. He gets silenced up by the Orchid. Great Ghost Ship to follow it up, but the damage just isn't there. Lifesteal with the Infest. Actually pops out in Winter's Curse, but the Astral save. Narman, this Astral Steal is just huge. This is why Rubik is so often the pick against the OD. The Aegis will time out, but OB.Neon got a ton of value out of that Aegis, taking multiple tier 2 towers, winning some fights and getting some pickoffs. It's only 4 kills to 5, but they have complete dominance over this game and this map.
Yeah, they've taken control of the entire map. There's just no economy flowing at all here for the side of Motivate.Trust. Very scarce farming coming through for Jack Boys. He is rushing that Heart now on the PL. That's going to give him some forward presence, but I just don't see an easy way of them dealing with Narman. I think that's their biggest issue in all of these fights. That Rubik counter pick to the OD is just doing too much work. And it's not just the Astral he can steal anyway. Down the line, it could be really easy to steal off a Winter's Curse. He's already got the Blink as well on Narman, so he can really just take anything he wants in these engagements. They do at least find a nice pick off onto the Weaver. Maybe overextending a bit there on Abing, getting some scouting out. So it's an important kill for Motivate.Trust to find, even though it's not the biggest. It gives Jackie a little bit more of a smooth ride onto that Heart.
Yeah. They need to maintain control of these Ancients. They got to keep that ward up. Weaver just, like you say, playing a bit too aggressive, trying to get that D-ward off. Brought in his Courier, which he also lost, so not the biggest kill, but in terms of this overall strategy and how Motivate.Trust need to play this game, that's what they need to see. Top lane Masa, he's in some trouble. Rubik would love to steal this Astral again. His old one has expired. He is going to catch up to him. Narman, lift, steal. He's got the Astral once more, and he set Palace up to get a kill.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing with the OD. You can't steal Arcane Orb. You can only steal your big ult or Astral, and both of them are really good to have anyway. And oh my god, Narman.
He is everywhere. Blink Aether Lens, by the way. This is a farmed up Rubik, and boy, this guy... I don't know about you. I'm just not a big fan of this Orchid Rush, because I feel like Kunkka, you often just need to be this frontliner and tank up right away. Like, most of these mid-Kunkkas, we're seeing rush items like BKB, or if you really want to be a bit greedy, you go the Armlet, for example, to do some more damage. The Orchid Rush just feels like it makes him so squishy.
Yeah, it's just not doing anything. He can't even use that Orchid on anyone, because the saves is always going to be on Narman, and it's not like you can walk up and Orchid Rubik, who's standing a mile away in the backline. So the utility of that in the team fights is not really showing up, and that just leads to a high ground push. With the Overlord up for a while, with a Beastmaster, it really just doesn't take too long to rip through objectives. They're not going to overstay their welcome and force the racks, but Motivate.Trust now has to constantly respond to top if the creep wave does come in, because there's no tower to hold it back, and this lead is just bigger and bigger. 9k up, 6-6, very slow on kills, but so much action across the map. Like, what Neon's doing is just so disciplined, and it just goes back to the talking points of Neon. They've really improved over the break. They've really improved over Huya. This is a team that just looks top tier with this kind of movement, with this kind of discipline.
Charge in. They're sick of Narman and what he's doing. They want to bring him down. They've got the Orchid follow-up. No chance for any spells to be used, so it's a dead Rubik. It's something. The problem's going to be when he respawns and OB.Neon perhaps go for Roshan number 2. It's going to be a pretty fast Roshan respawn. Not that Motivate.Trust can do anything about it, even with the Rubik dead. They're just hoping to get this mid-tier 1 tower.
Yep. Should be able to have it. Neon doesn't seem keen on forcing that issue, so a small win for Motivate.Trust will allow them a smoke opportunity, and now they're starting to invade that triangle. They still don't have forward vision, but if they find a few more kills here, that could set them up.
Well, Kunkka looking for that X-Catch. Gonna time-lapse on the Weaver. Tried to kind of time-lapse into the Spirit Breaker, but with the Orchid follow-up, all of a sudden this Orchid that I wasn't so sure about is found Motivate.Trust a couple of kills. Kills around the time where Roshan is respawning. Problem for Motivate.Trust is their lineup does not kill Roshan, so even with a hero advantage, they aren't going to be able to put any pressure onto the Roshan pit, and OB.Neon can kind of just sit back and wait for these respawns. Butterfly fully complete on TA. Not the common TA item, but against a hero like PL, who doesn't want to go MKB, this item feels fantastic.
Oh, yeah. It's going to feel terrible for Jackie to rush down at TA now. And OB.Neon, knowing that, you know, Motivate.Trust is just kind of hit and run. They smoke up. They're going to try to find a pick-off, maybe go into the Roche right after. And Motivate.Trust has at least managed to read. They do get a scan on the Roche, so they might get lured into the Roche to fight that. We'll see what angle they decide to take here.
Yep. They're still smoked up. Nice Dire Ward hovering above that Roshan pit, but it's not going to see any heroes just yet. Palos does reveal himself a little bit, as Omryu has to blink out as well, so the charge is on. They want to start this fight off onto Omryu's Beastmaster. He gets orchid up, so it doesn't give him a chance to use any roar or anything. He's had his mana pool burned here. The Infest trying to save him, but it's just not enough. Caught in the Astral. That's going to buy him some time. He blinks out! Oh! The save is there initially, but the charge is going to find him. He tries to turn. The Cold Embrace on a Q Spirit Breaker, and Omryu gets chased down by the PL. Elsewhere, the Rubik going down as well, and the Lifesteal of Palace just has to TP himself out of there. So OB.Neon are having some problems dealing with this chase, and the TA now out of mana being burned down by the PL. Jackie is well and truly online with the Heart of Trust timing. Motivate.Trust have bounced back and found the biggest teamfight they could have ever hoped for.
This is getting ridiculous. Motivate.Trust, it looked like, you know, they were being pushed on the high ground. They didn't have much of a map to play with. They just get this heart up on Jackie, and they know he's tanky enough to run in, so they melt through a lot of the key heroes. They're taking care of the Beastmaster, they're taking care of the Rubik, and think Neon, when they split up just far enough, that's the opening Motivate.Trust needs. That's their angle back. If the Rubik's not there in time to get some big spell steals, to get the big saves with the Astral at the right moment, then it can fall a bit flat. And Motivate.Trust, it looks like they're playing together much more as a team. You know, they're finding these angles out. They've got tools to initiate now. With a Shadow Blade up on Q as well, the Spirit Breaker actually can run in without being, you know, stopped from that charge. So there's more angles to play with. Motivate has to be a bit careful, though. Neon are mostly up and running again here.
Yeah, we'll see if they want to make their next move. This PL with Aegis, SMY, Diffusal now. Feels like a very problematic hero to fight into until they maybe get some BKBs. The TA is just going to have her mana pool get burned down. Beastmaster no BKB in sight. He just doesn't have the money for it. And the Lifestealer perhaps going to be looking to rely on the Rage a bit to fight into the PL. But all of a sudden, this game is back to even, or if anything, you'd even almost put Motivate.Trust in the slightly better position.
Yeah, we're reaching that point where PL is going to be a massive issue. Like, how do you actually kill off the Phantom Lancer? Again, you lack AoE damage. You have some with Meld, but against with the Psyblades, but it's not very reliable. You don't have anything like a Maelstrom, Mjolnir on Palos. So it's hard to just pin down Jackboys, and that's the big issue. Smoke out from Motivate.Trust, can try to find the angle. Again, still fairly blind on this side of the map, so they don't have the best vision to scout out. Probably not going to find anything big, but they can at least play safe with Gotcha Boy holding point and playing an X. Do you have to say, Parker, I'm liking what I'm seeing from Masa, right? He's got the Ags, he's got the Ag Shard. So these fights are even more obnoxious, because you see the defensive Astrals now for Masa are going to be really strong with him having the ability to just run away or reposition slightly. What? Neon, though, going for their own smoke play.
Yeah, let's see what they can do here. They've got that Hulk on the high ground, making it known that it's kind of clear for them to poke around. Jack on the front lines. They're actually going to go in the PL of all heroes. Look to burst down his first life, but the Cold Embrace is there, as is the Astral save. And they've got another Astral. He's got the Ag Scepter, so that double save could be coming in. Disarm onto the TA, going to deter any follow-up. And OB.Neon going to lose their tier 2 tower and be forced back here. Rage from Palos just to deal with the charge, as well as the X. Now the strike considered from Q, but he's going to cancel it and back off. As Motivate.Trust just playing some very disciplined Dota right here.
You take what they can get. They don't find a kill, but they manage to take a tier 2, so they can grab an outpost back, have a jungle to play in, get some of that free-flowing XP in the background flowing as well, and start to claw their way back in. From a 10k lead of Neon, it swung down to 3k in the most unexpected way possible. Like, all off the back of Jackie hitting that initial item timing. He's set to have a Scotty finished up shortly as well, so even more stats on the PL to deal with. And that butterfly we mentioned on Mamang Daya, I mean, it's still big, but it feels like it's not doing enough. He doesn't have enough EHP to make use of that evasion yet.
Yeah. so many other things causing problems, and we're seeing that also for the Lifestealer in mid. Gets the Rage off just in time. Needs an Infest target. Palos finds the Beastmaster, who blinks away as he infests there. In full retreat mode. Jackie is just untouchable, it feels like, on this PL, particularly with the double life. We saw bottom lane where they even tried to kill him once and couldn't do so because of those Astrals. The TA traps scouting out the backlines in the trees, but not really any way for OB.Neon to get in there and get on top of them. They're out trying to swoop around with the wraparound. The Beastmaster Roar catches the backlines on the OD, but gets the Cold Embrace up, keeping Mass alive a little bit longer into the defensive Astral. The Winter's Curse on the Lifestealer as well. They're doing everything they can to keep Massa alive, and elsewhere, Rubik has fallen to Jackie. This PL being ignored as they really want to kill these supports, but they just don't have the tools to do so. There's too much save, and the Sanities is going to blow up Palos, who is losing his mind, unable to kill anybody. The Wyvern Cold embraces the OD Astrals the Wyvern. They just have saves upon saves on this Motivate.Trust side.
Yeah, it's starting to line up, and they're using their spells well. They're breaking up these fights really well. I appreciate Neon's flanking maneuver. It looked really good, but just not enough, and they're getting jumped in their tier 3s.
Yeah, they're committing. They want Mamandaya. Gets his BKB off. Is this too deep, Motivate.Trust? Mamandaya's BKB will be wearing off soon, and I think Jackie realizes, okay, we got to settle down and go for the objectives. They've got creeps on the high ground if they want to go for the towers here, but he's found Weaver very low. Damage isn't there, and they've lost Q, so bit of an overextension perhaps coming in as Motivate.Trust will have to reset and reconsider as they walk their way back into this Radiant jungle and will continue to farm and get further and further ahead. I say ahead, they're actually behind on gold, but as far as any other metric, you know, the eye test says they are winning this game pretty convincingly right now.
That they are. It's such a swing from the side of Motivate.Trust. And you know what? This is a situation Motivate.Trust finds themselves so often, Parker. Like, especially in Pro Series, a lot of their games goes this way. They lose. They just completely lose. Laning phase and mid-game, early game to mid-game, very badly. Like we saw in Neon, they pushed top tier 2, they pushed mid tier 2, they were taking every fight, they were blocking the camps, they had a massive lead, and then Motivate.Trust just flicked the switch on by mid-game onwards. Jackie just comes out with one major item, and then they're suddenly set to go. Like, Gotcha Boy had such a terrible start. Like, this Kunkka was 2 levels behind the TA and 6 minutes in. And the item timings were slow, the Orchid wasn't doing much early on. Now we're at the point where Gotcha Boy's Orchid is actually looking like the best pickup he could have hoped for, because he's pinning down the right targets. They're splitting up these fights. The sustain is becoming harder and harder for Neon to fight against. Just, again, as you pointed out, Cold Embrace. They don't have the best magic damage to deal with that. The Rubik save can only do so much up against double Astrals now, and it's becoming harder and harder to find that angle here.
Jackie is just putting the test of his hero's strength in this mid lane. He's got the Skadi and feeling like he is untouchable. 4,000 health and a Titan Sliver with some extra magic resistance and status resistance. Try and kill this PL, say Motivate.Trust, especially with the Wyvern and OD sitting behind him. Not to mention, even Spirit Breaker, a charge through can be such a good save. Feels like they're going to have to go for another kind of wraparound play as Jackie just puts his body on the line, puts it right on top of this tier 2 tower, and there's just not a whole lot that OB.Neon can do, it feels like. Astral being thrown out as OB.Neon just watching this PL poke and poke. Death by 1,000 cuts, it feels like.
Yeah, just chipping away slowly. And every single time you're also giving these free Astrals to Masa, you have to watch for that Astral Imprisonment mana. He's getting a huge pool. 3k mana already. And that's going to be a big Santis Eclipse if they do find a use for it before it expires. Inside of Neon, they're just playing really defensive. Holding high ground on Triangle, looking for an angle, looking for that overstep on Motivate. But that tower, at this rate, will just eventually fall.
Poking and prodding constantly, and potential Roshan will be coming up in 30 seconds time, so if they manage to get themselves another Aegis and Shard on the side of Motivate.Trust, that's problematic for OB.Neon. And this would be Roche number 3, right? Because they got the first one super early.
Yeah, it should be number 3. So that should be potentially our Cheese coming out there with the Aegis and +1, and that's going to be big for Motivate if they do find it. You can't underestimate Neon, though. They've still got the Hawk's Vision, they've still got the Traps player, they get a good scan off, and they're smoked up here.
Yeah, they want to go into Narman. Gets the Blink Lip. It's on the Kunkka, who's just a little bit too tanky for their liking. They wanted that Wyvern that they initially saw, but he got a fast blink out. And Mamangdaya in the meld here. He's going to be forced to just turn and fight. Has to BKB. He's trying to escape, but the Nether Strike coming through. He's being locked into place, and the PL will just whittle him down with the Skadi Slow. There's just no running away from this team. Palos is learning that the hard way as well. He's trying to TP himself out of there. And he will be successful in getting himself back to base with the TP scroll. Winter Wyvern did actually get picked off on the backlines here, so good job by OB.Neon getting the backlines here. They found Massa as well. Can they kill off this OD? He's run out of Astral Charges, and Massa, he's going to die, so 2 kills go the way of OB.Neon to start things off here, but they will lose Beastmaster to do this. 2 for 2 trade. As it Dust is going to scout out the Q Spirit Breaker here. Force him to get some help from Gacha Boy, whose X-Torrent combo will finish off Arbeng. 3 kills go the way of Motivate.Trust, and a solid fight in the end going their way.
Yeah, it works out. It's a little bit messy. Good split of the fight from Neon to pick off the backline, cutting off that Winter Wyvern, cutting off the OD as well. I think if the OD managed to show up in the middle, you might have had some issues in keeping Palos around. So they hold on. They don't lose as much as they could have on Neon's end, but this is still a big opening for Motivate.Trust. They could eye that next Roshan. It has that free refresh along with the cheese now. So really big use case for the Winter Wyvern or our OD or Gacha Boy. Like double Torrent, double Poet. More uses of Astral. It's always good. Double Santies is great. A lot of utility that Motivate.Trust can get out. And from that fight, they've managed to get the lead their way. 6k up on Motivate.Trust. A massive lead on Jack Boys compared to Mamangdaya. Like, he's 25k net worth, 6k above Mamangdaya, about 7k over Palos. It doesn't feel like they've got any answer to that PL right now. It just feels impossible. He's got an E-Blade up as well for a saving mechanic if they do need something to stop the right clicks coming through. And he's just so tanky. 4.2k HP, lots of damage coming out. The butterfly that we saw Mamangdaya pick up early on, it just doesn't feel like that investment is paying off at all. Because he still gets ripped through. There's enough illusions that evasion chance, 35%, doesn't matter when there's a million illusions looking to burn your mana there.
Yeah, all that seemed to have worked for them in these fights is just ignoring the PL. That's how they approached that last fight. Found some heroes in the backlines here. They really just can't address Jack Boys here. We've seen them going in on the Kunkka, with an Astral being used to start things off, and Jackie has just got the backlines, keeping these supports at bay. Meanwhile, Palos' Lifestealer has found a decent chunk of damage on this Kunkka, but another Astral coming out from Masa, just continuing to save these heroes, keep them alive a little bit longer. Palos on the front line is going to be careful, being organed up. The Ghost Ship is there. Is there any save for the Lifestealer? 1 or 2 more right clicks, and Jack Boys has finished him off. Meanwhile, the Meteor Hammer has found Omryu's Beastmaster, as well as a Winter's Curse, looking to finish off OB.Neon. Beyond godlike for Jack Boys. Double kill, triple kill. He is just cleaning him up. Only the Weaver left standing, as Arbeng doesn't want anything to do with this fight. They're trying to finish him off. They TP home Gacha Boy to heal himself back up with the X and come back in. They're not even going for Roshan. It seems they may just be going for the tier 3 and the racks here.
Yeah, can't fault them for that. I think they got a good read that there's no buyback, at least on the TA. They see that fresh Orchid on Mamangdaya. They know that he spent the gold for that. A long way from the gold to have it back up. So they'll be able to find some good objectives to take. Clearing out the mid, and getting the racks as well. Maybe even if they want to overcommit, they could try, but the respawns aren't that far off. So I think they're only going to be able to take 1 clean set of racks. That is going to give them a lot, though. Like, they've got 1 less lane to worry about. They are actually going to stay around. It looks like they're just so confident with how Jackie is right now that there's no solution for the PL, and it's starting to boil back to draft. Your PL's big enough that there's no hero to deal with Jack Boys at all.
Yeah, he's really reaching that critical mass, sitting on some pretty crazy high stats. It's, 250 agility. His illusions are hurting. He's got 4k plus health, and there's just no answering this PL. 2 full lanes of racks, and they may just rush down this top lane as 5. I just don't feel like there's any answer to PL at all at this point. The itemization isn't there. The ability to deal with the saves, the Winter Wyvern, the Curse, as well as Cold Embrace, combined with the OD Astral means if you go on Wyvern, he gets saved by the OD. You go on the OD, he gets saved by the Wyvern. There's just no answer to it because of the lack of magic damage. Seems like they think the only answer and perhaps Hail Mary play to make is just run on out of their base and go contest this Roshan. Palos leading the way, trying to just go on the first target he sees, but now he's got an army of PL illusions to worry about. getting brought low, and the chase is on. Palos has to just infest his way out of there into the Weaver. And that means Rubik, Norman, has been left completely alone to die. Yachaboy gets the kill with the Orca damage. The infest out, coming in. Palos wants back in here. Nice cold embrace onto the OD. Healing back up with the 4-staff and a defensive Astral Imprisonment. Once again, they just can't finish off any of these heroes. This is too much kiting. This Lifestealer, he just can't lock onto any of these targets here. Boombo gets bailed out by a nice Ethereal Blade. The PL, Jackie doing it all. Killing heroes, saving his teammates, making the plays happen. Another cold embrace on the Master. He's still alive. Stolen charge from Narman going on through, but the Winter's Curse is there. Oh no. Narman. It's a sad, sad sight for him. They do kill the Wyvern in the end, but it's all over Red Rover. Mamang Daya, BKB TP's out, but they can read the writing on the wall, and it says, you've lost.
Oh my god, Motivate.Trust, how they held on. It just felt like OB.Neon had all that momentum behind them. They pierced the high ground, they take that early tier 3 top, they managed to take control of that jungle, block off all the camps that Gotcha was trying to build up on. And they had this massive lead, 10k by around, what, 14, 16 minutes in. Such a great start, but they just allowed Jack Boys to kind of play bot. Like, eventually, Motivate.Trust managed to take that tier 1, give Jack Boys all the space he needed, and place this entire game off his back. Like, they were doing a lot of work as a team later on there, Gods, but initially, you know, you were talking about the Orchid pickup on Gotcha Boy. It didn't look great. They weren't finding the angles. There was no fight to come out. The saves were coming out from Norman, and they just hit that switch. They know their PL's big enough. It's just down to draft. And Motivate.Trust, they do this every time. You know, they might be losing early game, they might be losing mid game, but if Jack Boys finds farm, and if they can hold on, you can never count them out.
Their patience paid off, because definitely a game where a rocky early game, you know, looked like things could get problematic for them, but they kind of knew, like, this, you know, TA Beastmaster, they were meant to control the first Roshan, maybe even the second Roshan, and take all these outer towers. And, you know, when you lose that tier 2 tower top at 15 minutes in, the game looked grim, but they stuck it out and they took the game 1. It is just the best of 3, though. This is the series. Motivate.Trust must win it to avoid tiebreakers, and OB.Neon, they must win it to avoid relegation. So a lot at stake here in Division 1 for the SEA DPC. We're going to go to a quick break and come back with our panel before we get ourselves ready with game number 2.